One of the biggest challenges India faces is in the area of providing equal opportunities to all sections of society. Skill development is one initiative which brings equal opportunities to all.
PanIIT Alumni Reach for India Foundation, headquartered at IIT Bombay, partners with state governments through non-profit, joint venture enterprises to create an institutionalized skill development architecture exclusively for the underserved across all districts of the state. The first such special purpose vehicle or SPV was created with agencies of welfare of the government of Jharkhand. The PanIIT model of skill development is predicated on a short placement, 100% skill loan financing, best-in-class training and residential infrastructure led by ex-army personnel. The foundation runs Gurukuls with 2 to 3 month training in construction, logistics, manufacturing and Kaushal colleges imparting 1 to 2 years of trade licenses, vocational education in trades like nursing, catering exclusively for the underserved.
बहुत अच्छी ट्रेनिंग आपको मिल रही है। आप सौभाग्यशाली हैं कि आप देश के इस हुनरमंद काम को बढ़ाने वालों में सबसे अच्छी संस्थाएं हैं जो 3-4 उसमें से एक मैंने अनुभव किया। भारत सरकार का मंत्री बोल रहा है तो कहीं बहुत अच्छा काम है होगा।
कॉन्फिडेंस हमको गुरुकुल दिया है सर के स्टूडेंट जो निकल के गए हैं वो अच्छी नौकरी भी कर रहे हैं और गुरुकुल के स्टूडेंट विदेश तक गए हैं।
आज अगर गुरुकुल में अगर नहीं होता, ना ही मैं दुबई को देख पाता, ना ही मैं 35 से 40 हजार में कमाता।
ये नर्सिंग कौशल कॉलेज है और मेरी फैमिली कंडीशन उतना अच्छा नहीं है कि इसमें लोन प्रोसेस के द्वारा पढ़ाई कराई जाती है, जिसमें कि घर से पैसे नहीं लगते हैं। कॉलेज बहुत अच्छा है क्योंकि इसमें फैसिलिटी ज़्यादा है और यहाँ थ्योरी क्लास के साथ साथ प्रैक्टिस पर ज़्यादा ध्यान दिया जाता है कि इसमें हाई टेक्नोलॉजी के द्वारा पढ़ाया जाता है। जैसे कि सिमुलेटर है, यहाँ वार्ड बनाए गए जैसे प्रैक्टिस वार्ड है, ICU वार्ड है।
Some of the studies have proven that if we use something like a helmet patient interface, the device which we have developed, lungs problem which lot of patients face can be assuaged and the patients can recover faster and better. That has been proven in some studies.
The moderator for the next session is Adil Zainulbhai. He is the chairman of Quality Council of India and former chairman of McKinsey India. A distinguished alumnus of IIT Bombay, he is currently on the boards of Reliance Industries, L&T, Network 18 and Cipla.
Good evening and welcome. We have two amazing guests over here today that I'm delighted to introduce. I think we'll have a very interesting discussion. One is, of course, needs no introduction, but is Suresh Prabhu. Suresh Prabhu has been in the government water, sanitation, electricity, commerce, railways, is the Sherpa for the G20 for India, and actually has worked in so many different areas that you can actually ask him about anything. In addition to that, he is a keen financier. He was chairman of Saraswat Bank and is a CPA. So other than engineering, I think he has done everything. And so we are delighted to have him here because he has a great view from the government perspective, as well as from being out of government for a few years and the social perspective. We're also delighted to have Sunil Wadhwani, who is a IIT distinguished alumnus, as all of you know, and has started many tech companies. And I think he told me that he has now invested in 40 startups. So that's wonderful. I hope many of them become extraordinarily successful and make a difference. But I think he was chairman of IGATE, is chairman of Mastec, spends his time between the US and India. And the most interesting thing that he's doing today is that he and his brother have started the Wish Foundation in India, which is putting an enormous amount of effort into the field of healthcare and in application of artificial intelligence in social areas, including healthcare. As I understand it, Wish Foundation is running all the Mohalla clinics that were set up in Delhi, and over 600 clinics in India are being run based on their system, their approach, their IT, and they've taken responsibility for it. So Sunil is not just a great tech entrepreneur, but he's also been able to put many of the ideas from his tech entrepreneurship into action and making a difference in India. We have, as I said, we're very pleased to have both of them. I'd like to start out with Suresh Prabhuji because he has to leave in a little time. But one of the very interesting things about Suresh is because he has a wide view of the economy and Samaj and the social area, he has a view of what are the opportunities and what is happening. So whenever you talk to Suresh, Suresh never discusses problems. Suresh always talks about what are the solutions, what are the opportunities, and what are the things that he's seeing. So Suresh ji, in this time, when everyone is feels a little downtrodden or is locked into their houses all over the world, and the mood is not so good, what is it that you see that makes you so optimistic and confident? What do you see for companies? What do you see for society in India? And what do you see about the role of India globally, given that you've been you're a Sherpa for the G20, where you look at these things? So a very broad set of questions, but I thought it would be helpful to lay the context and let you get started on any one of those three things, and then we'll explore it further.
So thank you very much, Adil, and of course I'm very honored by the fact that I am sharing a panel with such two distinguished, great personalities, and those who, of course, they don't owe it only to being an IIT students, but also because of that they are here and they have done such great thing. So I was saying I couldn't go to IIT, but the great advantage of not going to IIT because I would never deserve to be there, but at the same time, without being in IIT, if you can become part of PanIIT, at least I can say that I could be with IITians for some time, if not for a long period. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting program. Now, coming to this very interesting question that you asked me, in life you must accept first thing, there are certain things which are reality. And so you cannot change the reality. What is the reality? Is today's corona situation is a reality. Can you change it? No. Can you make it better? Probably through some intervention, yes. But it's a reality. And to top it all, this is a reality which pervades the whole world. No part of the world is immune to this. So everybody is affected by this. So now we have to see it's not necessarily only to feel better that others are also suffering like me. But the opportunities come because when the world is changing, and it is bound to change, and it is already changing, like the program that we are having today, when Mr. Wadhwani may be in the US and Adil is in Mumbai, I'm in Delhi. The fact that it is already changed. The way we are doing business, the way we are talking to each other, the way we live life, it has changed already. So when the change takes place, it offers opportunity to those who are not necessarily part of that earlier system. If I was part of the earlier system, maybe I would be loser or gainer, depends upon my ideas. But let us look at India as a whole. We, despite now the fifth largest economy, close to $3 trillion, still we are not a big player in the world, which we could become now because of these changes that are taking place. Countries will be dealing with different players, different countries, new supply chains will emerge, new ideas will be dominating the world. And in that situation, we have an opportunity. Like my co-panelist, Mr. Wadhwani was saying, I mean, he is in business, he would tell you that he will like to do business with his existing vendors, with existing suppliers. He will not like to change for no reason. But if there is some change happening and he had decided already to change the supplier, then I have an opportunity because otherwise I was an outsider. So today in the world, India has an opportunity because there is a redefining and repositioning of almost everything. Like it is happening individually, it will happening collectively as a country also. So that is one opportunity we have because there is already a change taking place. Established relationships are redefined. That is one. Secondly, look at the companies. Now, let us take our own example in India. One company, which all the analysts were saying that it is debt burden, which is a big challenge for a company like Reliance, which is India's biggest company. What did Mukesh Ambani did? He turned that challenge into an opportunity. He got money from where nobody had thought about. They're all saying that investment into telecom business is going to be a burden on the other core businesses of the industry. In fact, it has happened exactly the other way around. So it means that opportunities are possible in the most difficult times as well. Some of those countries who never invested in India before, like Facebook or even Google to that extent, are now coming and investing in India. When everybody is at home, nobody has opened offices. Financial services business is closed, and that time he could get more than $20 billion of money. That shows that opportunities are even there today. Now look at India's companies. The kind of profile we have in economy is one is industry, which is 16%, and we want to take it to 20%. And services, which is dominant part of the country economy, which, because if other sectors grow, obviously the share of services will relatively go down. But services, big opportunity in services is that the whole world will now need services, and it is possible that you can render those services remotely. So India being one of the largest population, at least if not the number one, number two, and maybe will become number one soon, almost 17% of population anyway, we have the opportunity to serve the world if we position it properly. On industry, the new manufacturing will happen not necessarily in the same country which is today the workshop of the world. People already want to move out. In fact, I'm very happy to say, not to embarrass Mr. Adil Zainulbhai, he was member of the group which, as the Commerce Industry Minister, had set up under chairmanship of Surjit Bhalla, in which, of course, the present Foreign Minister of India was also a member, along with illustrious member like Adil. They had prepared a roadmap as to what should India do, and this we did 3 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, when there was no corona. But we were trying to reposition India into that scenario. So who will benefit? If India becomes now the new hub, I'm not saying hub because that's a wrong word because it's too big, but we get some manufacturing which is not happening in India today into India, who will benefit? The entire corporate world will benefit. And who will benefit more? Surprisingly, you will not realize it. It's a small scale industry. When Maruti came to India for the first time, Suzuki came to India for the first time to acquire Maruti, what did happen? The entire ecosystem got developed. Small and medium enterprises benefited more. In fact, automobiles, which is India's currently one of the biggest segment of manufacturing, used to be under the old GDP series, almost 40, 47, 48%. Today, close to 40%, 37, 38%. And that industry, the shop floor of that industry, which produces cars or two-wheelers or commercial vehicles, most of those components and parts are manufactured by SMEs. So if the new manufacturing activity happens to India because of these new changing geopolitical reasons, which in your group you had identified very well, the small scale industry will benefit. So opportunities will come from there also. The corporate world will benefit. We must always remember, the big companies cannot survive without small companies. And small companies have something in stake for big companies to grow. If there are no big auto companies growing in India, there would not have been auto component industry going in India. So when one big stellar investment will happen in India, that is going to create huge support in the small scale sector. So these are new opportunities that will come in manufacturing services. In agriculture, can you imagine that today about 14% share in agriculture? We should take it to 20%. Not just agriculture. When I say agriculture, horticulture, meat, dairy products, marine products, all put together. It is possible. We can increase the share into manufacturing to about in agriculture export to about $100 billion. That's an opportunity. Now, who will benefit? Now, as we discussed in the first segment, we discussed industry, SMEs and corporate will benefit. In other segment, we discussed services. Even people will benefit. Service is a very people-centric activity. You have to render service means people have to render it. So employment will also generate. In agriculture, common farmers will benefit. Those who will part of a supply chain to take the product from farm to export market or from farm to other markets in India, the whole supply chain will benefit. So opportunities in India are definitely there. We should not be overawed by the challenges, because it always happens. If you see the challenges all the time, you cannot see the opportunities. So I think we should look at it as a great beginning, a new opening, and we should try to grab it. I can tell you something. When the depression came in the US, it could have become a human depression also, because your mind gets depressed. It's an economic depression. But if you just talk about economic depression all the time, it will become mental depression, psychological depression. If you are depressed, how can you think positively? So I am very sure, even in today's difficult situation, let us accept the fact that it's a difficult situation. And let us accept the fact that it's a reality. So we cannot change the reality, but we can react to reality. And this reality is definitely daunting, challenging, and it has created a lot of issues for common people in India, for business in India, everybody. That's a fact. I'm not trying to even say that this is not reality. That is also reality. But point is, if I keep talking about that all the time, am I going to solve the problem? What I should do is like the depression in the US. Firstly, I should not get depressed, because if psychologically depressed, I cannot think about anything at all. And therefore, I think I should try to not depress, but repress, and try to work on my positive energies and try to do it. And I can clearly tell you, look at agriculture, the last point I was trying to mention. What has happened is, because of this sudden development that took place in the last few months, from earlier this year, the Middle East, it does not produce much of food. What about their food security? They would need to import from somewhere. India is very close to them. And again, we have the market linkage with them, because we import so much of energy from them. We get so much of remittances from them. So because we have those already established linkages with them, they know us, we know them, we can actually export that food to them very close by. And in fact, as a commerce industry minister, I talked to most of the countries, all the countries in fact in GCC, and they are very willing to do that for us. They will like to buy it from us. So these are real opportunities. Then as aviation minister, not only as commerce industry minister, I prepared under leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I prepared India's first ever agriculture export policy. Same way as the aviation minister, we have prepared air cargo policy so that we can airlift it and can sell it there. So I'm saying these are real opportunities. I was just reading that Amul, which under the Amul brand, they sell milk products. They want to take the turnover maybe more than double in the next few years' time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1 lakh crore or something that said. But if Amul increases 1 lakh crore, Amul is in any case a cooperative brand, but their top line goes up. But because that Amul as a big brand, the top line goes up, who are they going to buy milk from? Are they not going to buy from a small little 1 cow, 2 cows farmer? And their incomes will go up. So this is the linkage. Opportunity rises, so there will be need some big brand like Amul, so that people back home in those countries will realize that this is the brand I accept. But even small business will benefit as a result of that. Farmers will benefit as a result of that. Transportation of milk will happen and bring it to the chilling center. That again they will benefit. So all of that is going to create opportunities. So I think we should really now focus on new openings, new possibilities, new opportunities.
I think, Suresh, one comment, because this is an IIT group that is listening to this, or IIT alumni. I think we would also be very interested in your views on how technologies, and especially because IITians have gone out and developed many new technologies, not just in IT, but in others, and how that technology capability you see playing out in terms of India's growth going forward.
You know, I personally feel that everything in future will have a key element of technology. So all economic activities, technology will be embedded into it. So technology will drive the entire future economic growth of the country. In fact, I'm on the World Economic Forum, has set up a group to deal with the post-COVID situation. And in that group, these are all the ministers, and so I'm also part of that. I don't know why. But in that, again, everybody agrees that technology is the future key to growth. So technology per se will bring growth. Technology bring efficiency into operations, because right now the focus will be also, we will have to be afloat. To remain afloat, we will have to do technology to reduce cost, to become more efficient, optimize your resources. So technology will be needed in that area. In India, Indian context, and particularly my friends from IIT, PanIIT family, I would like to urge you, normally when you say technology, you look at very high-ended technologies, which are really needed, no doubt about it. We obviously need technology companies like Google and Amazon and Alphabet, and all of them will be needed, no doubt about them. But I'm saying, so they are A. All the major 3 A's they call it, and even you can include other A's also, Alibaba and others. So A is there. But between A to Z, there are other 25 alphabets. So I think there is an opportunity there also. You should not look at the opportunities of a top technology, high-ended technology issues alone, but even lower-ended technologies. When I just mentioning about milk, the fruits and vegetables in India, we lose something like 30%. Because so many reasons. The mortality, we talk about infant mortality rate. This is a vegetable fruits mortality rate, which is higher than probably infant mortality rate. So I think, why not we use technologies at that end? The Prime Minister of India has launched a very major program for providing potable drinking water to all the households in another 4 years' time. Can you bring some technology to make this water accessibility in a manner that will reduce cost? Can we have some parameters for improving quality? Energy, very important issue. Like, we need some distributed energy now. We cannot just rely on a centralized energy system that we already have. So renewable energy will offer that opportunity for distributed energy. You can have a microgrids. That's another technology. A big technology issue which is related to all of this put together is energy storage. Can we think about very breakthrough ideas for energy storage? And that again will transform the world completely. Forget India. But the advantage of PanIIT is that you have a live laboratory to use your ideas into India. And when it succeeds in India, you can succeed anywhere. Like you always seen that you successful Indians who if they can succeed outside India, and if they succeed in India first, then they can succeed in India even more. So technology application and its testing on a real life basis can happen in India in a much bigger way. So I personally agree with Adil, with you fully, that technology is a key. It is going to be completely all pervading part of our new economic and social activities. But particularly, I request my IIT friends, this opportunity, and just to again go back to what C.K. Prahlad had said, the bottom of the pyramid. So I just look at it bottom of the pyramid in terms of those technology solutions for these people in their day-to-day needs. It's a business solution for you as technologists. If you can provide electricity and water and food quality improvement, etc., just imagine how many people will use that technology. I mean, they individually may not use, but the delivery of those services or the food that is going to happen, somebody, the deliverer, is going to use that technology. So you imagine the number of people who will use it. So therefore, the application that you will develop will have the capability of being massively used, and therefore once it happens, then you can use it somewhere else as well. So I think technology is, I fully agree, is a key, including, I would say, use of technology for project management. Now India is going to use massive amount of money for infrastructure. Now one of the problem we always faced in India is cost overrun, time overruns. In fact, one leads to another. And particularly when we don't have enough resources to put into infrastructure, can you not have good project monitoring tool, project implementation ideas? That's another technology issue. If you can work on some of these things, bringing, for example, geospatial technologies for project monitoring, I think that can really help significantly. Now we are using, of course, drones also to maybe part of our monitoring. In fact, as aviation minister, I also come out with a drone policy. But I'm just saying, technologies of this kind, which will have a massive application, are the future of the world. So I think you can think about that, can actually benefit immensely to us as well as to you.
Suresh, a couple of questions from the audience. They are saying that I'm monopolizing too much of your time. So can we take a question from the audience? I think Ashank Desai has a question for you.
Suresh, good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Fine. You will be happy to know that this program is conducted by PARFI, PanIIT Reach for India, where you had come in Haryana, if you remember, to inaugurate our skill-based institution that we started in Haryana many years ago.
In Haryana.
So I'll thank you
Nindana,
all of you.
in Nindana village.
You remember, right?
Nindana village in Haryana.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. But just little loudly, I cannot think.
Sorry, what did you say?
A little louder, he can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. So my question is simple. You have been innovator, you have been ideas person, and most importantly, a commerce minister. Now, everyone is going to come to India for various reasons, as we know. China issue, the other issues that India and America are coming closer, etc., etc. However, we should be worried about Vietnam and Thailand are going to take that business away from us. We have to look at China, unfortunately, to see what they have done well. They have done what is called as SEZ, we call SEZ, perfected. In Shenzhen, was 30,000 people village in 1980. Today it's a 12 million hub with billions of dollars of investment and GDP. Can we not recreate in India that kind of model where we completely block all other issues of labor, land, etc., which prevent people from getting in the country, create a kind of a separate country, if I may call it, and then allow only foreign investment, export-oriented industry, and money will flow inside. I'm sure as a commerce minister, you might have looked at it. I want to know what are the issues that you face to make that happen. Even Mr. Pangaria says that. In Pangaria was talking, former economic advisor, that he feels that even this is the best model today for us to move ahead. So take SEZ at another level. So my question to you, and I know you are the best person to ask that question.
See, firstly, the whole idea behind the special economic zone, which actually evolved during the time Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, and there was a group of ministers which was set up. I was to be part of that. The idea was, can we create, you are asking about special economic zone, right?
Yeah, how do we perfect it to a size of China?
No, I know, because part of the economic here. So now, So the idea was, can we create islands like special economic zones? So then eventually those islands can be then become part of a mainland also, so that whole country can do it. In fact, this is how in Shenzhen, in China, they started a first special economic zone, and around the coast they started many more subsequently. Now, recently, as a commerce industry minister, actually I had set up a group to look at all the special economic zone under chairmanship of Baba Kalyani, an eminent industrialist, and there were a lot of other members. And I think that report is already submitted, because the whole idea was what you are saying: can we not bring everything together and allow a proper entrepreneurship only to flourish there, and all the so-called hurdles that normal entrepreneur faces outside are at least in that area they will not have to face, so they will be working on that. So the whole idea was that, and that report is already submitted. I think we can act on that and we can take it forward. I will add one more dimension to this. See, so one, I fully agree with you that inside the special economic zone there should be complete freedom for economic activity to happen, and therefore they will be only focusing on product development, on marketing, all these ideas, so that how they will be able to reach the world from there. Now, and therefore they will at par with the rest of the world so that they can compete. But there are two, I mean, giving my own ideas to this. I personally feel that we should also have a special economic zone for a country specific. For example, if Japan and the Japanese government has given some incentive to the industry to relocate, can we not have one only for Japanese special economic zone, for Japanese companies alone, so that everything inside the special economic zone will look like Japanese, including sushi bar and karaoke music, as well as the Japanese side. So they will be really feeling comfortable about it. Same for Koreans. We cannot have Korean food, everything else. Of course, I like to go into that incident because I love Korean food. It's a different thing. But point I'm saying is, if you do like this, so one, geographically specific, so couple is happy. In fact, I even given this idea to Russian. But second part would be that some of the special economic zone either can be country specific or can be product specific. We can make special economic zone only for a particular product, like for example, chemicals. See, chemical, the problem is effluent treatment. What happens? How do you deal with that? So the rest of the country will not be affected. We can have very high-ended effluent treatment facilities inside the special economic zone, so they can be taken care of, and those such common facilities can be shared by all those units that will come up there. Say leather, another important but also polluting. Can we not have only a special economic for leather? So it can be one for countries, other can be for product specific. But your point is well taken, and I think we have to work on that.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Thank you, Sunil
Thank you.
and Adil, for participating here. As one of the founder members of PARFI, I must thank both of you. And of course,
Thank you.
Suresh.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
think
much.
Sureshji has been very kind, and I think you had to go, but I wonder if you can take one last question.
Please.
And I wanted to just raise, which was a very interesting that a few very interesting examples have come out during COVID times. You talked about Reliance, but the other one was what has happened on PPEs in India, right? This is something that actually China did a lot of, and in the space of 60 to 90 days, India has gone from being a huge importer of PPEs to, I think we are now producing 1 million kits a day. There are lots of issues on quality and others, but with relatively little help from the government, the industry turned itself on its head and has become one of the largest producers of PPEs. And in fact, UK, US, Europe are all looking to import PPEs from India. What is the lesson from that? Because most of the time industry is always saying, what is it that government can do? But in this case, other than the government sort of encouraging people, they haven't really done anything in terms of in terms of money or anything else. And yet the industry has grown from nowhere to become, we literally have an oversupply in India. So any thoughts and comments on, what does this say about the capability of Indian industry?
See, there is what industry did was supply. When there was a clear market signal which emanated for a demand. Now, can we therefore, one, not to create artificial demand, but a real demand, because this was really in need of the hour, and therefore it was produced instantaneously. I think if you really look at it, this speaks, of course, about a great ability of the industry to respond to such a so quickly to such a emerging issue, and that clearly shows. But also important issue is about a demand which came in, and therefore the demand could be catered. I think there is another such big opportunity like that, I would say, for India particularly, but also for anybody. And again, going back to your earlier point about technology, see today we are facing a pandemic which has brought entire economic activity to virtually standstill globally. And that is one pandemic. Just imagine the big challenge, and whether, in my opinion, there is some relationship in pandemic, also environmental issue because of loss of habitat, animals, man, possibility of transmitting a sort of pathogen from animal to man has already happened. But it will happen more as a result of climate change. So climate change response, both for adaptation as far as mitigation, is a clear market signal. There's a demand for that. So just imagine we put certain regulatory framework in India, which will benefit India because we'll reduce the emissions, we'll have a better ability to look at adaptation, which can create huge demand for the industry. Because the market signal, the demand will be created through this process because of regulation coming in. So I think this will also ensure that we avoid the future pitfalls of facing climate change, which is a reality. Whether we accept it or not, the greenhouse gas emission already gone into the atmosphere are going to be the cause of climate change for years to come. So this is another very good market signal we can send through proper regulation, which in turn can result into, so mitigation would mean more renewable energy. Adaptation would mean dealing with agriculture, dealing with natural calamities, etc., and coming out with solutions like that. So I think this is something very absolutely there to be tapped and to be benefited from.
Okay, great. Thank you, Suresh. I know you had to run. You said you had to run at 8. You've been very kind and stayed with us for a little while. Thank you so much, and thanks for giving ideas to the IIT alumni group here. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
We will continue. Suresh and I will, Sunil and I will continue this in a minute. Thank you, sir. Sunil, sorry, I meant to have this a little more interactive between all of us, but as you saw, once the minister gets started, it is it's very difficult to intervene.
It's fascinating listening to someone with the background and experience of Suresh. So I enjoyed that.
So I thought I wanted to start out with, go ahead, please.
What I was saying was I so much agree with what Suresh just said. Number one, that the pandemic is this global, it's kind of the biggest global healthcare crisis that we have faced since World War II. And to look at the impact that it's happening, that it's having in, virtually every country in the world, I mean, it's devastating. In India, we've seen, of course, the millions of migrant workers who had to, leave their jobs in different cities, go back to their villages, sometimes on foot, on bicycles, and so on. In developed countries like the US, we've seen images on TV of hospitals, of intensive care units getting overrun in places like New York City. So it's having a devastating effect, and we're still, to my mind, in the early stages of the economic impact of all of this. So if we look at India as an example, 6 to 8 weeks ago, we were thinking that the contraction in the economy for this fiscal year would be maybe in the 2 or 3% range. Now, with the extended lockdowns that we had till the end of June, now it looks like it may be in the 4 or 5% range. And of course, there is still so much uncertainty, right? The virus may come back. For people who've had the virus, they have some level of immunity, but we don't know what level of immunity, how long does it last? So there are a lot of unknowns. And if India and other countries around the world have to go back into partial lockdowns, that is going to impact economic activity even more. And the challenge is, so even if we have a contraction of, let's say, 5% or 8% of GDP, that's a huge amount. Some people might be inclined to say, well, it doesn't sound so bad because, 95% of the economy is still running, etc. But the problem is that an economy, a large economy working at a 90 or 95% level, is an economy that's limping. It's not an economy that's running. You have some people going back to work. You have some people who aren't able to go back. You have much higher levels of unemployment. You have much higher levels of business failures, which causes people to go out to work. You have stress on the financial sector. You have entire sectors like airlines, hospitality, and so on, which will continue to struggle for 3 or 4 years. So even a 5 or 6% slowdown in an economy, which to many people, as I said, may not sound big, are in fact very big. The problem, and to exacerbate the problem, in every country, the negative effects of the slowdown impact most of all people at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. So in India, the jobs that are being lost are disproportionately ones that affect people at the lowest end of the ladder. They disproportionately affect women more than men who are losing their jobs. And the same is true in countries around the world. In the US, people who've lost their jobs are primarily at the lower end of the economic scale, not at the higher end of the economic scale. Suresh talked about MSMEs. MSME is the largest employer in India after the agriculture sector. Many people are not aware that in this broad definition of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, micro and small enterprises account for 99% of the MSME sector. Their profits in India are likely to come down by over 50% this year. Their costs, in many cases, are going up because of labor shortages, other input prices, etc., which means many of them will struggle and many of them are likely to go under. So the effects of all of this are going to continue for quite a while. I don't believe we've seen the worst of it yet. Having said all of that, I think the main point that Suresh made, I completely 100% agree with, which is that times like this also provide a tremendous opportunity. It may sound callous to talk about opportunity at a time of so much tragedy for so many people, but it truly is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for organizations, for businesses, for nonprofit organizations to rethink what they do, how they do it, how to become more effective, how to apply digital and technology and innovation to everything that they do. And we can talk more about this, Adil, in the minutes ahead. Similarly for governments. Governments, obviously, the immediate response has to be on the healthcare side, making sure that we're testing people, we're doing contact tracing, we're treating people who get COVID-19, how do we expand production of PPEs and so on. Beyond that, though, how do we take care of the social and economic challenges that we're now being faced with? How do we help this micro and small enterprises? How do we help people who've lost jobs? So as we do all of that, and the Indian government, I have to say, as I look at governments around the world, I think the government of India has been more forward-looking, has been more proactive than many other governments around the world. And I give them a lot of credit. The total stimulus packages that have come out in India are around 10% of GDP, close to $300 billion. It's a very big number. And I commend the government of India not only for moving quickly, but also for being forward-looking. So for thinking about what sectors need to be invested in. How do we invest in innovation at a time like this? How do we invest in digitization at a time like this? How do we invest in entrepreneurship at a time like this? How do we invest in the sectors of the future? How do we invest in infrastructure? So the Indian government recently, as you know, Adil, came out with this national infrastructure plan, which contemplates investing over $1 trillion over the next 5 years in Indian infrastructure. And now the government is looking to see how do we accelerate that? And how do we fast forward aspects of that plan, which can employ a lot of people? So I think this truly is, as Suresh said, in spite of all of the challenges that we're all facing, whether as individuals, as companies, as nonprofits, as governments, but this is a great time to reimagine what we can do, to rethink what we can do, and to think through not only for the traditional sectors of industry, but how we can transform sectors that truly are the building blocks of development and growth, which are healthcare and education. How do we use technology to improve healthcare and education in the years ahead? How do we use digitization, entrepreneurship, etc.? So I think, I think we can look at either side. We can look at the challenges that we are facing and just stay focused on that, or we can look ahead 3, 5, 10 years ahead and see how do we use what's happening now, this calamity, because it is a calamity globally, but how do we use this to transform life for the better for all of us in the years ahead, but especially for people at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having some
yes.
trouble with the sound. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could talk a little bit about, I know you're doing a lot of work to help people who are affected by COVID, but also the lower sections of society with what you're doing in the clinics, and how you've been able to apply technology to, in fact, improve what the clinics are doing. And let me just give you a little bit of background on it, which is many of the changes that could be done in India, could we use what's happening today to accelerate it? So for example, how do we accelerate digital government so that it's available to everybody? How do we accelerate digital education so that it's available to everybody? How do we speed up digital health so that it is available to everyone? Can you comment on some of those and what kinds of things you're doing and what are the opportunities overall in terms of trying to make this happen?
Absolutely, Adil. So just for background, I've been working with NGOs in India over the last 20 years, and particularly in the field of healthcare. To me, the two building blocks of development are healthcare and education. When someone is healthy and they've gotten the right education and the right training, then they can earn a livelihood for themselves, and then they can provide for their family. I decided to focus on the field of healthcare in my social and civic work, only because healthcare is such a challenging ecosystem in any country in the world. It's complex. There are a lot of moving parts: primary healthcare, secondary, tertiary. There's issues of inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and so on. And to me, as I looked at how do we improve healthcare in India, being a technologist, being from one of the IITs, it was natural for me to think of how can innovation and technology be used to advance healthcare in India. So after many years of working with other nonprofits and really understanding what the healthcare situation in India is like, about 6 years back, I decided to start my own program in India called the WISH Foundation to see how we can transform primary healthcare in India using innovation and technology. Why the focus on primary healthcare? Because that is the foundation of healthcare in any country. An effective primary healthcare system should be able to deal with 80 to 85% of all of the healthcare problems in any country. The challenge in India is that in many of our large lower income states in India, we just haven't had the resources, and in some cases, we haven't had the effective governance to build really an effective primary healthcare system. So when you look at the large lower income states in India, states like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, UP, Bihar, Odisha, Assam, and so on, in many cases, and especially once you get outside the major metro areas, if you're living in a village or if you're in an urban slum, someone in your family gets sick, very often you don't have access to good quality primary care, you don't have access to specialists, and so on. So I started WISH Foundation 6 years ago, trying to address some of these shortages, shortages of healthcare personnel, physicians in these low-income areas, shortages of pharmacies and pharmacists, inadequate medical supplies, and so on. And the challenge again was how do we address some of these challenges using innovation and technology? So we've developed a model on how to do that. And 6 years after startup, Adil, I'm glad to say that we are now operating in several of the states that I mentioned, in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, UP, Assam, in Delhi itself. And we're running in partnership with government over 650 primary care clinics, which use a high degree of innovation and technology in what we do to provide these services. And since startup, we've provided free healthcare to over 10 million patients from some of the poorest segments of society in India. What kinds of innovation and technology do we bring in? We bring in innovation into, first of all, how we train healthcare workers. We bring innovation into how we take patients into our clinics. We set up electronic medical records, etc. We bring innovation into our diagnostics. So we've developed a set of smart diagnostic devices so that when a patient comes in, not only do you get all your basic vital signs checked, but all that data on your vital signs can be transmitted instantaneously to a physician who might be sitting 100 miles away. Why is that important? Because then for the actual consultation with the doctor, as I've said, when you get to these very low income communities, it is difficult very often. There's a shortage of physicians over there. There's a shortage of healthcare workers. So we bring in access to physicians through using teleconsultation. But for teleconsultation to be effective, the physician has to have immediate access to your vital signs, which is why the smart diagnostic devices are helpful. Then the physician talks to our patients over a video screen. It's a low bandwidth video screen. All of this happens within a total time of 4 or 5 minutes. And then in most cases, the patient has to prescribe a medicine to the patient. Now, in these low-income areas, especially in rural areas, there are also shortages of pharmacies and pharmacists. So working with local innovators in India, we've developed medicine vending machines, which look like Coke or Pepsi vending machines, but instead of soft drinks, they've got 85 or 90 of the most commonly used medicines, in that vending machine. And the physician who might be sitting 100 miles away, once he or she has diagnosed the patient, sitting 100 miles away can hit a button on their keyboard, and where the patient is in a rural village 100 miles away, in that vending machine, which is next to the patient, the right medicine pops out, and the physician gives the patient the right instructions on how to use that medicine.
Well, I think, Sunil, that's if I can just comment for a second. I think it's fabulous, and I wanted to put a challenge. You've done so much in this. I wanted to put a challenge not just to you, but to the entire group that is listening. There are 3 or 4 very interesting technology developments that have happened already. You're talking about telemedicine, for example. You're talking about the clinics. You're talking about how to dispense medicine, right? But you think about today, is there an opportunity to get to the best in the world and leapfrog so that, in fact, we can provide healthcare for all, which is a goal of the country, right? Can we provide education for all? Can we provide universal logistics for all, right? Today, trucks are stopping all over the place, and we still take 3 days to cover a distance that should take 1 day, which is better than 15 days, right? And so I think the challenge to everybody here that I would put is, while in the past there may have been bottlenecks, today, actually, I see that the government is very, very open to using technology to solve a whole set of problems, including what you talked about, which was jobs for migrant workers, jobs in construction, telemedicine, the ability to learn better, the ability to do logistics better, the ability to do digital transactions better, the ability to get cash and lending for small and micro businesses. For the 99% businesses, one of the big issues is access to markets. Can we create something that gives them access to markets? So my challenge is this, and can you talk a little bit more about not what you've done so far in healthcare, but as you think ahead, particularly with your AI engine investment that you're making in healthcare, how will that help us leapfrog so that we have a world-class healthcare system?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a great example of it. And first of all, I think you're absolutely right. When we think about areas like healthcare, education, training, livelihoods, etc., these are areas where technology can be transformative. PanIIT graduates, current and future, can make a big difference in this area, and they already are making a difference. But I'll give you an example in healthcare of the kind of impact not only we can have nationally, but I think the kind of impact we can have globally and in other developing countries by setting the example here. So in healthcare, Adil, as an example, the government of India, the Modi government, 3 years ago, came up with a new national health policy in 2017. It was the first new national health policy we'd had in almost 20 years. And there were 2 strategic pillars to this national health policy. One pillar is a focus on primary healthcare, because again, that's the foundation of healthcare, and it needs to be greatly strengthened in many parts of India. And the second pillar of that national health policy is an insurance program. Because healthcare costs can be so devastating for so many families, especially at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. So the second pillar of this healthcare policy was we will provide insurance to 700 to 500 million people in India, 100 million families, so that if you have to go to a hospital, you're covered. And this, of course, is the Ayushman Bharat program that was launched 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago. On the primary healthcare side, the key strategy of the government is to set up 1.5 lakh health and wellness centers around the country that will provide primary healthcare to over 700 million people in India. These are people, again, at the lower end of the economic ladder. This will be the largest healthcare system in the world. Now, it's a very aggressive program. It's a very ambitious program, but it doesn't deal completely with some of the systemic challenges that we have in our healthcare system, which is, again, shortages of doctors and healthcare personnel in low-income communities, pharmacies, pharmacists, medical supplies, and so on. So through my Wish Foundation, just as one example, we've developed a concept of a digital health and wellness center where we use digital technologies in the kind of like the examples I mentioned to you a couple of minutes ago, where we use digital technologies to overcome these systemic issues of shortages of medical personnel, medical supplies, and so on. If now that model, that digital health and wellness center model, has been looked at by the health ministry, they're very interested. It's been looked at by different state governments. In fact, foreign governments like the governments of Afghanistan, of South Africa, and others have expressed interest in this model. So models like this can become national platforms, these digital health and wellness centers, as a way we can roll out very aggressively over the next 2, 3, 4 years to ensure that people in India have access to good quality primary care. There are similar models in education. There are similar models in training. There are models in energy, as Suresh was saying. There are a range of things that we can do. I'll give you another example. 2 years ago,
can I just interrupt?
Yeah,
I think a couple of people are desperately trying to ask you a question,
okay,
and
certainly.
they're telling me to shut up. So, Raj, I think you had a question. Raj, can I invite you to ask your question?
Sure.
Sunil, extremely impressed by the kind of work you're doing in healthcare and your thoughts about what more can be done. I want to shift you from there to another sector which employs the highest number of people in the world and is also the largest sector in the world in terms of revenue, which has been the worst hit sector right now, which is the travel and tourism sector. What do you think as an IT person and a technology person can be done to revive that sector, both in the demand side as well as the supply side? How do you make the latent demand go up, and how that can be serviced with proper health safety factors and so on and so forth? What can be done?
Raj, your voice broke up a little bit. Which sector are you referring to?
I'm saying the travel and tourism sector.
Travel and tourism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is in very, very bad shape right now, and it's unlikely to revive for the next 12 months. What can be done using IT or technology or digital, all this kind of digital technology?
See, I think here's the challenge, Raj. Different sectors, as you mentioned, are getting affected differently. Obviously, travel and hospitality is getting affected the worst, and this is globally, not just in India. And some of these sectors will take time to revive, 3 to 5 years to revive. Other sectors will come back earlier, etc. I think the key is the following, that technology can have a transformative effect in all of these sectors. In terms of demand, in terms of reaching out to customers, whether it's through social media, in terms of reaching out to other businesses, in terms of managing our costs better in all the organizations that we run, in terms of ensuring our supply chains, the viability and resilience of our supply chains. It can be applied in all of these areas. And the good news is the Indian government, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, is very, cognizant of the potential impact that technology can have. And as an example, when my brother and I started this Artificial Intelligence Institute in Mumbai, which is a nonprofit, and the idea is, how do we apply AI to improve the quality of lives for the bottom, 30 or 40% of people in India, and in fact in all developing countries. PM Modi came down to inaugurate the institute, and he gave one of the most thoughtful keynote addresses I've heard anywhere in the world on the power of data science and artificial intelligence to transform India. And he said, we may be behind today in terms of the use of AI for commercial applications. The US and China are way ahead. But he said, maybe we can become the example to the rest of the globe in how you apply AI for social good. So at our AI Institute, we have teams working on AI for tuberculosis. How do you detect TB earlier? How do you treat it better? We have teams working on AI for maternal and child health. How do you detect high-risk pregnancies earlier? How do you deal with them? How do you deal with the issue of low birth weight babies? We're applying it in agriculture. How do you help farmers improve their crop yields by reducing the crops that they lose to pests,
I
etc.
think Sunil Raj is suggesting that you take a portion of that and apply it to travel and
Yes,
tourism.
I hear you. I hear you. My point
That's
is
what I heard.
yeah, my point as we wrap up, because I think we're close to wrapping up, is that technology, AI, but technology in a broad sense, can be applied to all of these sectors, from manufacturing to healthcare to education, etc. And now I think when we're slightly on pause because of the pandemic, is the time to reimagine the future. It's the time to reaccelerate what we do, to be bold, to be imaginative, because now people are open to that. When you look back,
Raj, can I? Sorry,
yes,
go ahead. Sunil. You finish.
I was saying, when you look back at similar times in history, whether it was World War One, whether it was World War Two, whether it was the tech meltdown, whether it was the global financial recession of 0809, that is when really bold ideas came up. And now more than ever before, all of us, and especially to all my IIT brothers and sisters, I say this is the time for us to be bold, imaginative, and for us to make a difference.
So, Raj, I wanted to answer specifically on travel and tourism. So let me start with the good news. The good news was that India was actually not very good in travel and tourism, especially for international tourists. If you look at travel and tourism as a percentage of our GDP, it was relatively small. Imagine you're the Maldives, where some 40% of your GDP or 60% of your GDP is tied to travel and tourism. Thailand is something like 18%. Croatia is very high, etc. For them, this is a huge hit because it's so fundamental to it. We had actually not done as good a job on travel and tourism, and as a result, it was not a very high portion of our GDP. So in a sense, it's a great opening, right? Everybody has to restart thinking of what is the future of travel and tourism. And we don't have to take the huge knock because we were actually not that dependent on it. So we can think completely new ways of how to do this. So I think, and especially in terms of domestic tourism, I think actually the opportunities are really quite large in terms of using IT as to how people are going to find what are the safe places to go to today. It's not that easy for people to figure out in this environment, how do I go to safe places? And I think after the various lockdowns, as soon as it becomes a little easier to go, I think we are going to see a big bump up, and we should be ready for that by creating the IT tools and others that require people to really think about this. I was quite surprised to note that the way people look for hotels in Goa has changed completely. Now that Goa is opening up, people are looking at which hotels will allow me to do a COVID test before I go there, etc., etc. So I think this actually allows you to create tools and to use IT in a way that will in fact encourage tourism and travel and tourism and allow people to travel safely. So I think there will be lots of opportunities. We'll have to see. I don't know if I knew exactly what it was, I'd go start the company. I don't know that, but I actually think there will be a huge opportunity.
I think it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I think we have run past our time. What I'd like to do is to actually thank you, Sunil, tremendously for taking the time to join us and talking about the wonderful things that you're doing in India in healthcare, and also the opportunities that you see going forward. Obviously, we're trying to cover a very wide range of topics, and I'm sorry we've not been able to cover. I think we could go on for quite a while because there are so many different areas in which I think there are interesting opportunities. But I hope that with Sureshji's talk and with Sunil's talk, we've left all of you with the view that actually there are tremendous opportunities, and we should think about them in terms of the ability to leapfrog, both in terms of business as well as in terms of the social good for the country, to leapfrog using technology to get to where we'd like to get to. And there is no other group that is better positioned to in fact do that than the IIT Alumni Group. So let's hope that by the time we meet again next year, that in fact we will have some great examples of how IIT alumni have used technology to both create new businesses and to help the country's development. Thank you very much, Sunil. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ashank, thank you for hosting us.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of our viewers. And again, be safe, be well, be imaginative. And now's the time to make a difference, whether it's regardless of how small, how big. This is the time when our country needs us. This is the time for all of us to help. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, good morning, PanIIT, and all others present here with us today. On behalf of Spic Macay, I'd like to thank PanIIT for giving us this platform to showcase our classical heritage to its audience across the globe. As many of you may know, Spic Macay was founded at IIT Delhi in 1977. Many of its alumni have been and are still active till date. Most of Spic Macay's annual conventions are held at various IITs across the country. There are many Spic Macay heritage clubs at IITs. For those new to Spic Macay, it is the Society for the Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture amongst the youth. It is a not-for-profit, apolitical, voluntary movement for and of the students. Today, we boast of about 500 chapters in India and 53 outside India, which have organized over 15,000 concerts in last 3 years. Today, from this platform, I request all of you to kindly give a little bit of your time to our movement to further our goals. And this evening, we're very fortunate to have amongst us Shri Ayaan Ali Khan, the Sarod Maestro, to perform live for all of you. Ayaan ji does not need any introduction, but it is customary. So I'm going to request Paiswini Saikia, one of our very dedicated volunteers, to introduce Ayaan ji and take the evening forward. Dr. Paiswini Saikia herself holds Masters and PhD in Astrophysics. Over to you, Paiswini, for introducing Ayaan ji and the concert tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar, everyone. I'm Paiswini Saikia, a volunteer of Spic Macay UAE chapter. I would like to welcome Sarod Master and composer Ayaan Ali Bangesh for this virtual concert on behalf of Spic Macay and PanIIT. Ayaan Ali Bangesh ji is the disciple and younger son of the Sarod Maestro Amjad Ali Khan. Ayaan stepped into the world of music and Sarod at a very early age with confidence, clarity, consistency, and technical mastery. Ayaan gave his solo debut when he was just 8 years old and has been performing concerts in India and abroad since then. He made his UK debut in 1989, his US debut in 1991, and since then, he has been performing globally, regularly, conducting workshops and also collaborating with artists of different countries. Over the years today, Ayaan has carved out a special niche for himself in the world of music. Ayaan's approach, vision, and versatility make him an icon for the youth in the music industry. For his outstanding contribution to the global music industry and excellence in the classical music sphere, Ayaan Ali Bangesh has been felicitated at many prestigious platforms like the coveted Global Music Awards under the Gold Medal category. We welcome you, sir, to this digital concert today. Thank you.
To perform for all the students of IIT. I've been extremely fortunate to have performed in all the IITs across India, from Kharagpur to Powai, New Delhi, Kanpur, Chennai. So it's always a pleasure performing to an institution that is a brand ambassador of excellence. Today's recital is unusual because it's done in this intimate format, but it's a tribute in the current times to all the frontline workers, to all the doctors all around the world who are tirelessly working and doing their bit in these very trying times. So I'll begin with a song which every Indian resonates with, Vande Mataram, which is also based in Rag Desh. So I'll play Vande Mataram and I'll move on a little bit in Rag Desh. Thank you. India has a great tradition and legacy of folk music. So I'll play some folk music from a few parts of India. We'll go on a journey from Himachal Pradesh. We'll start from Rajasthan, then Himachal Pradesh, then we'll go to Bengal, and then we'll finally get off the train in Assam, where my mother comes from as well. So we'll start from Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Bengal, and then Assam. Those of you who are seeing this instrument, the sarod, for the first time, I just like to say a few things, that it doesn't have any frets like the guitar or the sitar or the mandolin. And we are playing with a coconut shell called Java. And we have 19 strings. Altogether, we are playing in 4 main strings. There are 4 drone strings and there are 11 sympathetic strings. And we're also playing with our nails. If we play with fingertip, the sound becomes very flat like this. But we're playing with our nails, so the sound changes to what you were listening to. So next piece, it's a beautiful raga created by the great Miya Tansen in the 15th century. It's called Darbari. So I'll play a little alap and a few compositions of my father in Rag Darbari. Thank you. It's been a great honor and a pleasure to be here. This is a very unusual situation which I'm playing in, because this is the need of the hour, actually. And I just hope and pray that the planet heals very soon, and I hope that the world opens up, and I hope and pray that people get well soon and stay safe. And I hope they're wearing gloves, I hope they're washing their hands, I hope they're not touching their face too often. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to musically connect with all of you, and wish you all the very best. I'll conclude with a raga from the South Indian system of music called Kirwani, and just a short improvisation. And I hope to see you all in the near future very soon. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Spic Macay, PanIIT, and all the audience today, I would like to extend my heartfelt vote of thanks to you, Ayaan Ali. Thank you for this wonderful music.
I think you're from Assam as well. My mother's from
Yes,
Assam
sir.
too.
Yes, sir. It was really nice to hear the folk music also.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we also hope that we get such precious opportunities to host you very soon again. And on behalf of Spic Macay, along with you, I would also like to thank CNBC, TV18, and PanIIT for this wonderful platform today to have such a beautiful virtual concert. We are really, really honored, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and honor. Thank you.